Guys, while leveling my warlock, I saw that there are a lot of people that are making new characters, whether they are new players making characters or people are making alts already, but like leveling is booming considering that there's no crazy endgame content out yet. So I thought it would be a good time to make a video about some leveling tips. I want to preface this by saying that most of the stuff I'm going to recommend in this video is very generic and not specific to any build or spec or class. Also, I will not mention too many vanity items that cost a lot of gold or that can be bought on the store. With that in mind, let's get into it. First up, level scaling. This is pretty much the first thing that the server is confronting you with, even during character creation. And to cut to the chase, in my opinion, there's no reason to ever turn this off during leveling. Later, there are some reasons to turn this off. For example, you want to go back to old content to farm a mystic enchant, or you want to go grab a world forged item that is surrounded by monsters and you don't want the fights to be unnecessarily hard when you don't care about experience. But during the actual leveling, I think you always want this setting to be on. If you already turned it off, no worries. This is a decision that you can change at any point in time. You can either go to the NPC in every starting zone. They have the subtitle Destiny Weaver, if I remember correctly, or in capital cities. Important to note also, if you join a party, the whole party always has the setting applied that party leader is using. So sometimes people will invite you that are on the same quest as you, and there will be a small warning, but that can be easily missed, where it says that if you accept the party invite, your scaling option is gonna turn on or off based on what the people inviting you are using. Yeah, one big misconception why some people are scared of using scaling is that they think all mobs will be on your exact level, and that would make a lot of fights harder than they'd have to be. But from my experience, how it works is that the game only checks, is this NPC more than 4 levels lower than you? And if the answer is yes, they put it to 4 levels below you, so in green range, not in yellow range. If the mob is not more than 4 levels below you, the level scaling is not gonna touch their level at all. So it just prevents them from turning gray for the most part. The good thing about level scaling is that you don't have to be super careful to outlevel quests or mobs or zones. Sometimes in the default game you go back to town for like a big turn-in, and you have to be careful to not turn them in the wrong order, because you could potentially turn green quests gray and make a net loss on experience. So that's pretty nice. You also never turn the mobs in the zone to gray level range, which would cost you a lot of experience. And it also makes it so that you can play with your friends, obviously, that may drop out of your level range. That's pretty nice. But the most important part, to me at least, is that you can have different routes through zones from the default game, which can be nice because this makes it possible for you to skip a lot of zones that you don't like. And then you can also make use of the zone design of lower level zones, because some of them have a very high quest density to make up for the fact that you don't usually have a mount yet, because you're traveling so slow. They have like way denser quest hubs to make up for that, and you can make use of that because you already have a mount very early here. And you can also pretty much use all of these low level zones because they never turn gray for you. Another thing that's important to note though is that the minimum level requirement for the zones does not change even with scaling on. It's only the maximum limit that is dynamic. So you can't go to like Stranglethorn Vale with a level 5 character. You will still get your shit kicked in. Everything is still gonna be skull level. On the other hand, you could stay in Stranglethorn Vale until 60 once you have a level that's high enough. Quests are king. Even though Warcraft Reborn has a dungeon finder tool, and dungeon finder is usually like a super popular way to level on these kinds of realms, Ascension actually nerfed the experience of dungeons, which makes complete sense because they want you to explore the world, as that's like currently the main selling point of the project. That's where all their resources went. They have like a gazillion new points of interest, hubs, and world forged items. So as a result of that, quests are in most cases the best way to level by a decent margin. Can still be very worth it to do dungeons if you have quests run, and oftentimes you have at least one person in your dungeon group that has the Vanity quest pet, which offers all dungeon quests. If you can do those in a run, they can still be very efficient. So something I did when I was trying to level fast, which is a bit toxic though, so if you want to judge me for that, that's fair. But I would just on cooldown queue for a dungeon, check if it is one that I have quests for still and someone who has the Vanity quest set, and if not, I would just leave immediately and tank the deserter. Obviously, you guys are better people than me, so you would never do that. But you could. So because quests are the best way to level, in my opinion, this means that you should always emphasize finishing as many quests as fast as possible. This includes swallowing your pride and often inviting other people that are doing the same quest, especially if you're doing like elite quests, because relatively speaking, the kill experience that you lose from sharing it is always outweighed by the increase in quest speed you gain from partying up with people. Also important to note on this is, unlike in default classic WoW, quest item drops are shared, so every person in the group can loot the quest items. Next part is PvP modes. There are War mode and high risk. From level 15 onwards, you are able to choose between staying in the default PvE mode, which means you're completely removed from potential PvP encounters in the open world, or War mode, which makes you attackable and able to attack other people who have War mode or high risk on, or the last option is high risk. High risk means the same as War mode, but people that die drop some of their items. So it's basically War mode with stakes. One of the incentives to turn these PvP modes on is that you get some bonus experience. War mode gives 10% additional experience and high risk gives 15%. But important to notice is that this only is kill experience from both killing players and mobs. So relatively speaking, this is not really a huge deal. And if you find yourself getting ganked so much that it's actually like disruptive to have PvP mode on, then you should totally turn it off. Like, it's not a huge deal. It's just a little bit extra experience on top, which is nice. You can also turn this on and off at the NPCs, which are usually in capital cities and lower level zones, the ones in which you would usually reach level 15. For example, for Alliance, it's Westfall and Darkshore. Usually they are close to like call boards. Another minor experience gain is the custom rested buff that exists on this server. If you're one of the people that has so much FOMO that you piss in a bottle to not lose out on experience, then this is for you. If you stay inside of an inn, except for the capital city inns, for 15 minutes, you will get a buff for 2 hours that increases your experience from kills by 8%. This is also not a huge deal. It's a nice to have, and if you want to be efficient, you can try to line this up with when you actually have to get up and do something. Try to always step away from sitting AFK in an inn to accumulate this buff while you're gone. Stay in the green level range. This is something I don't see that many people do, but it actually made leveling so much easier and smoother for me. Basically, try to always do content that is in the green level range for you. Like, killing mobs that are in the green level range is just for some reason so much easier than like yellow mobs, at least in my experience. Especially with the scaling system in place on this server, where you are never in risk to go gray on anything. It's just, why would you not make it easier for yourself? You know, having to drink less between pulls and the faster kill times and stuff, they add up so quickly and accumulate to like many hours saved over the course of like a full leveling playthrough. In case you didn't know, there's no penalty for doing green content over yellow or even higher content. You don't get less experience for that, except for like obviously the base scaling of higher zones having higher XP. But there's no penalty on doing green stuff, so it's just more comfy straight up. That being said, I also totally recommend you to never brute force your way through like content that's even higher than yellow level range. Like, there's just no point in ever doing like orange to red quests unless you have like maybe an efficient group for that. But like, yeah, the extra experience never makes up for the extra difficulty. You will just slow yourself down and make it unnecessarily frustrating and dangerous. because higher level mobs have like more HP and there is level based resistances, so they take less damage, and if they're high enough they can even deal crushing blows to you, so it's rarely ever efficient. It's mostly dumb and dangerous. Now to the infamous vanity item that I would recommend anyone to get. This is an absolute no-brainer. It's called Feather of Ancients. I know I said no vanity items, but this is the one that is actually perfectly within reason. By the time of recording this video, they are listed as low as 5 to 6 gold on the auction house, which you can even get by just vendoring a bunch of Worldforged items. You don't have to do anything crazy for this. Yeah, what this vanity item does is it unlocks all flight path, which is super OP while leveling. It doesn't even need an explanation. Also important to note, this is account wide. You only have to buy this once and all your characters can claim it. If you're a broke boy, swallow your pride, dance in the gold try in if you have to. It would have been a crime to not mention this, even though it's a vanity item. Yo guys, Envoy from the future here editing the video, and I almost forgot to mention, get a Stone of Retreat for Orgrimmar / Stormwind from the auction house. Another vanity item that is dirt cheap and you should have it. It's a separate cooldown from your default Hearthstone, so a lot of potting around and extra time saved here. Crafting XP. One part of the crafting overhaul in this game involves that crafting things now gives experience. One of many reasons to get professions up. Like, you should totally get them up anyways, because the gear is really insane. Even in endgame at 60, it's not just for level. And like gold making also, like, you should totally have professions anyways. But if all of that is not incentive enough for you to bother with professions, they also give experience now. It's not a crazy amount of experience, it's just a little bit of nice extra experience. And if you do it efficiently, it's especially nice because you can do it while AFK. If you really want to push your efficiency, you can pair up the 15-minute AFKing in the inn for the experience rested buff thingy and just make bandages or something during that while taking a piss. If you can get a level or two even just from like leveling professions all the way, then that can already scratch off an entire zone that you would like to avoid from your leveling route, which in my opinion can be very worth it. Get easy OP gear. So as you can imagine, with all these new systems that pour items into the game, it's comparatively very easy to get good gear while leveling. The most obvious ones are Worldforged items that you will come across pretty much minutes into your first character, making sure that you always get a good weapon or maybe even a cool trinket. There are now actual working maps and add-ons and discords with databases on Worldforged items, so researching that and making sure you're always on top of your gear, always having a good weapon for your level and stuff is pretty crazy. But there's more than just Worldforged stuff. Also the already mentioned profession stuff. You can create pretty crazy gear, and even if you don't make them yourself, due to the professions, there's like really good stuff for basically free on the auction house. I would advise you to at least make a stop every 5 or at maximum 10 levels and update your gear with Worldforged stuff, auction house stuff, and crafted gear. And you should also get a lot of stuff from drops because of that RP rework where mobs actually drop their gear. So you can, on quests where you have to, for example, kill like 20 mobs and there are like 3 different kinds of mobs, you could totally strategize around killing the mobs that have your armor class and hope for good drops. Next up, the Goblin Teleporter. In case you haven't seen this thing yet, it's in all faction capital cities and it's also in all neutral cities, the Goblin cities, like Booty Bay, Everlook, Ratchet. It ports you to a lot of different locations. It's pretty OP, but most of the locations cost 8 gold, which probably deters a lot of people during leveling because 8 gold is a lot when you're low level. But something a lot of people missed, including myself for a long time, is that teleports between your faction's capital cities are actually free. So you can go from OG to Undercity for free and back, for example. And yeah, this can totally scratch off hours from your leveling process. And here's the last one, the most important one. This has easily saved me many hours while leveling, and I think the chances are pretty high that this behavior will change in the near future. So if you don't watch this video shortly after it releasing, make sure that this still works, because you can screw yourself over pretty badly if they changed it. It's pretty simple. If you die in this game, on top of the default options of resurrecting at a spirit healer or running to your corpse, what you are also offered is resurrect in a safe zone, where you can then further specify resurrect in closest city or in the closest town, where cities are basically capitals and towns are rested camps. For some reason, I don't know if this is intended or not, but this does not apply resurrection sickness to you. The only downside of this is you take durability damage on your items, but this is also negated by the fact that repair costs don't seem to calculate properly here. So even though the tooltip on hovering the repair button shows like a very high cost usually, the gold that's actually subtracted from you is like very negligible, a few silver at most. Which in conclusion means you can basically die over and over and teleport around, which in some zones is like a crazy amount of time saved. If you think about, for example, Duskwood, where legitimately half of the time you spend in that zone, you're just riding from Darkshire to the graveyard and then back and then back and then back. Where on this server, you can basically just die to some ghouls and respawn in Darkshire every time. And this is just one of many examples. There's another thing you can do related to this mechanic. If you are familiar with Ascension, you know that there's an outlaw mechanic, which basically means that you can attack your own faction and become an outlaw because you can attack anyone. What this does is it turns your capital cities from your faction's capital cities to the neutral capital cities, which are the goblin cities like Everlook, Booty Bay, and Ratchet and Gatgetsun. So if you have PvP mode on and you're a mercenary, which is something you can just do by pressing a button in your spellbook, and then you die and resurrect in the nearest city, you are teleported to the closest neutral city, which is also a crazy shortcut because I think you pretty much can go from like Elven Forest to Booty Bay in like 2 seconds like this. If they end up fixing the repair costs of gear, what you probably can do is actually stash all your gear in the bank, then die, and then get it back out. This is annoying and micromanagey, but all things considered, the death skipping around is probably still a huge time saving, even if you have to eventually do it like that. Then we got a few honorable mentions that didn't make it into the original video because either they are like temporary things, conditional things, or just very minor boosts. One is currently is the Halloween event going on. You can get a 10% XP buff from that, which is pretty nice and you should totally do it. But that Halloween event is just not always up. That's why it's just an honorable mention. Same goes for the Dark Moon Fair, where I believe you should get another experience buff, but that's also currently not available. Then the most obvious one, heirlooms. I feel like if you have heirlooms, you wouldn't watch a video like this. But in case it's not obvious, if you can get heirlooms, get them. They're super OP. Like the biggest boost by far right now. Another trick, you can skip flight path by logging out. This is mostly only worth on very, very long flight path, and it's gonna drop you off at the next station, not at the end of your entire flight trip. You can also, but this is very inconsistent. Sometimes when you get a dungeon queue pop during a flight path, and you come out of the dungeon, then you are at the very end of the flight path. But yeah, this is not consistent. It sometimes glitched out, dropped me in the middle of the sea and so on. But I thought it was maybe worth mentioning. Then in some very crowded areas, there is instancing. So there are multiple layers and you can manually swap between them. The button is usually close to your minimap. This mostly works only in starting zones, but they also enabled it, for example, in Stranglethorn, where it's like very full. You can also use this in capital cities, for example. If in one layer is no altar up but you need one, you can swap around in the instances and you will probably eventually find one. That's about it. If you made it all the way to here, thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a comment if you have any major leveling tricks, skips or whatever. Yep, bye.